Hi, everyone. Today we have a Brazilian wax studio.
That's so messed up. You just take my joke like that.
Okay, well, this is the third time we've recorded this intro to the show, so we're going to be honest with you guys.
Edmund thought it was inappropriate when I did it, and then he starts and he does it.
Well, because they said it was fine.
Yeah,
we have great guests today.
We thought it was funny, and so then you got to take credit.
I have wanted to have these people on the show for a very, very long time. I've wanted to go to this place called the Wax Place.
Wax Space.
Wax Space. Dang it! And it's going to be a fantastic episode coming up after this.
You staying home tonight? I hadn't planned. I don't know.
See, that's messed up, right? That was my joke.
Yeah, that was messed up.
That was kind of savage, honestly.
He just sees all the parts. He's an attention whore.
I was kind of that guy in high school.
We know.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
You're gonna die.
I'm Raymond Arroyo. We'll see you next time.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the show. We got Kyle in the closet here. Adrian is on a secret mission, and we have the fantastic Doug and Grant. I know in my brain I'm going to get that so
You got
confused.
it, man. You nailed it.
Got it.
That was perfect.
Thank you so much for being here. You guys are from a place called the Wax Space.
That's it.
And okay, so
Edmund has been obsessed with you guys for a long time.
Awesome.
Okay, so
He's like feeling a little bit of like.
I'm a little nervous.
You know, yeah. He's a little nervous.
So I think. Well, we'll get to. Is the TX studio also related?
That's us.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
okay.
where we started.
So we moved to the area like 6 years ago, I think. And I think a few years back, I can't remember how far back, but it's like one of these things where you come across it on Instagram and you're like, this place is cool. Mm-hmm. And I've been following it for a long time. And it's been my dream to visit. I never have.
We gotta go.
Man, you come
gotta
down.
I'll have to
So
go.
partially, we're a one-car family. I have like a moped, so my radius is pretty tight.
Okay.
We'll come pick you up and bring you
my
down.
gosh.
We'll come get
That'd
you.
be
You
awesome.
can just get an Uber.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'll drive. You Uber. I'll meet you there.
So I have a million questions, but maybe if you could give like a quick introduction of you guys' just like background,
Yeah.
Your life story.
because you guys look young as crap.
Which one's older? That's the $1 million question.
You're older.
Nope.
Oh, I would have guessed that too.
Love that. Wait,
Doug, why don't you
want an
start?
intro?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, so TX Studio, we started that, what was it, 3-4 years ago?
2017.
Dang.
2018 was when we launched it.
That's right.
Are you guys from Texas?
Yeah, from Dallas.
Okay.
So East Dallas area, White Rock Lake, if you guys are familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trendy
and
part of town.
That's it.
We're out here in the suburbs, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, this is great out here. I'm loving it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, East Dallas boys, and then I went out to A&M for 4 years, and then came back, kind of lived downtown, and made my way over to Oak Cliff. So
What'd you study at Texas?
Oof, that's a good one. I did something called University Studies, and that was
That's awesome.
creativity, some business, and what was the other thing? Religious studies.
Really?
So is that like a liberal arts?
It was,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It
Cool.
was. And then
Interesting.
the big thing for me while I was there was doing the newspaper, and
Oh, cool.
was a photographer for actually the photo editor for the yearbook and newspaper. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
And then how did you guys meet at Texas A&M?
no brothers.
Yeah, I was gonna say they were.
We are bros.
They were
Brothers.
I did
I
not.
met him in the hospital when I was born.
I knew that.
He showed up.
So how many years apart? How many years apart?
5 years.
5
Okay.
years,
Okay.
man. Yeah.
And what about? So where did you go to college?
So I went to a little school in Indiana called Wabash College. Very tiny.
Okay.
All male.
Rugby?
Really?
Football.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good guess,
Running
though.
back.
I feel
He
like I
played rugby, but you wouldn't be able to
Well,
tell
no,
by
I
looking
think
at him.
no. Did Wabash have a rugby team?
They did, yeah.
We might have played Wabash.
Oh my goodness.
I went to
Where did you go?
Steubenville. Steubenville. It's West Virginia, Ohio,
nice.
like right where those two touch.
You probably.
I think we did.
Yeah, you
That's
definitely
wild.
did.
Yeah.
That's
What if-
crazy. Did you
wow.
go to Wabash to play, or did you?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
Weird.
those
That's
are
cool.
crazy semesters, but
Yeah, that's wild.
He doesn't even know all his own kids' names, so
no, I
he's
don't.
not gonna remember that.
I don't know my kids' names or birthdays, so I'm really.
He has
that's
5
good.
though, so.
Yeah.
What's
nice.
crazy is I think you talked with Sam Rocha early on.
Oh.
And he was a Wabash. He was a Wabash professor for a period of time.
Oh, that's right. Did you know him when you were there?
I kind of only, not really, no. Like
Okay.
only by, there was 900 people on campus and that was it.
Wow.
So like we kind of knew everybody, but
Yeah.
I didn't take any classes with him or anything.
So what'd you study there?
Rhetoric, actually,
Oh.
yeah. So
Interesting.
rhetoric and then economics, but it's a liberal arts school, so it's like kind of a
So
little bit of
rhetoric and
everything.
economics, does that set you up to be a politician, a governor? Like,
It just sets you up, I think, to do marketing for the most part. But no, I think I took a hard left turn after trying to go the pre-med route. So
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
so what did
I was
you guys?
pre-med for one semester.
Nice.
Yeah, it's so hard. Chemistry is so hard.
And then I could not pass organic chemistry. So
Yeah, I did
I didn't even
biomedical engineering at Georgia Tech, and then
For 1 year.
transferred out a year and a
okay.
half. Thank you very much. 3 semesters was hard.
That is hard.
Yeah.
that
And
third semester will get you.
I know, especially if you're not doing Adderall.
Oh, right.
Like that's like the extra step.
Yeah, you have to do Adderall
It
to
was
get a
very
degree at
tempting.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, because
I've
everyone
heard
was like,
that.
"That's what you do here. Like you have to
Yeah.
do."
Stay
and then
focused.
I transferred to a very small Catholic university.
Wait, so how did you go? Why did you decide to go to an all boys school?
I literally had no intention of going there, and then like 2 weeks before the end of my senior year, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go there. So
Really?
I really wanted to play football.
Yeah.
I knew they were like a great school. Went and visited. My grandparents lived. Our grandparents lived in Indianapolis,
Okay.
Yeah.
which it was like an hour away, and so towards the end of my senior year, and I was just like not into the all male school idea. I
Yeah.
thought that was super weird.
Are
and
there
not-
like girl groupies?
There is Purdue University right next to it.
Okay.
Which I think we also played rugby against Purdue.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
I can't imagine there's that many rugby teams in the Indiana area. So I imagine
Well, and
Purdue
even
and
like just
No,
in
they're
college in general, right? Every
Yeah.
Well,
school
the
doesn't have
first
a team.
semester we were D3 and we
Yeah.
won every game. Then the next year we were D2 and we lost every game.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
The mighty have fallen.
So that's what happened. Okay, so for people who don't know, the Wax Space is a co-work space, and then the TX Studio is also kind of related. But if you could take us like
Yeah.
to there, like how
Yeah.
do you go from Wabash to photography
Yeah.
for the newspaper?
Yeah.
Also,
now-
Doug, I want to share this because I think it's important. Doug on campus at A&M was knew a lot of people, and he was the photo editor, which he said earlier. But he got like an amazing college experience there, and
Oh, yeah, loved
got
it.
to
It was
got to
great.
photograph like all kinds of incredible people, and I think that kind of led you
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
photography,
No,
right?
photography. So that kind of transitions to the studio was
Yeah.
photography.
Yeah.
So kept that from college. Like Grant was saying, shot a lot of football games and portraits of people and just nonstop shooting. But everyone I got to take a portrait of Stephen Hawking.
Whoa.
Which
Oh,
was,
that's cool.
It was cool and weird. But yeah, his computer just had the most bizarre stuff on it. Like it was like, yeah, it was weird. Like aliens are around us, and then also like, can I have some water? And you're like,
Wow.
okay, all right. But yeah, photography, loved it. And actually, after graduated from A&M, came up here and started doing that freelancing full time, and then was part of a co-working space called Weld in the Design District. It was a lot of creatives that were in the
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
a lot of photographers.
Is Weld still is
So
this
we
open space?
launched a space in Nashville that's still in existence, but
Wow.
the Dallas one closed, and so
So you were working at Weld?
I
or-
was working as a freelancer there, and then it ended up working as
Gotcha.
On staff for him. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
And did you help them launch the space in?
Yes, and actually Grant was up there too. For
Oh, at
that
Weld
opening-
Nashville?
for that opening party.
That was that was cool.
But yeah, no, it was a blast getting to know some of the people up in Nashville. But
So which came first,
mm.
the TX Studio or the Wax Space?
TX Studio by year and a half. Oh, actually, it depends on our
Yeah, it's ki-
involvement.
It's kind of an interesting dynamic with Waxspace. We actually bought Waxspace from the previous owners who started Waxspace. So
Yeah.
there were two guys named Matt and Bo who have an agency called Kickstand.
Okay.
I actually interned with them for kind of my first job out of college, but
Yeah.
they started Waxspace, I think, in like 2016, 17.
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, something
Well,
like that.
Didn't Tyler Station? This is going to go into a lot of explanation, so I don't know how
Right.
interesting it is, but
I love it. Yeah.
Tyler Station's this factory that's in Oak Cliff,
Okay.
below Jefferson Boulevard, 115,000 square feet. It used to be the Dixie Wax Paper Company,
Oh,
and
cool.
they would make Dixie cups and like Frito-Lay like wax paper bags and stuff like that. So
Interesting.
inside the factory, there is a production brewery called Oak Cliff Brewing Company.
Okay.
Stash Designs, which does reclaimed wood, furniture, restaurant build outs. and then everything in between. So a lot of small entrepreneurs, medium, large. Got the co-working space on the other side, which is Wax Space, and then the studio as well.
So how did you guys come across the opportunity to take over? Like, what's that story
Yeah.
there? Or more, I guess what I'm more interested in is like, what compels someone to say, yeah, I think this is a business model we want to get into. Like, obviously you've been working with the Weld and opening up other spaces, but
so when Weld closed, I actually worked with Matt and Bo to kind of like bring over some members and became a member myself there. And then around that time we were kind of came up with the opportunity of starting the studio, and so signed a 5-year lease and went for it. And at that time Grant was, so my wife is the third partner in the studio.
Awesome. Is your wife pretty creative, photography?
So we met at the co-working space at Weld.
cool.
So she was a writer and photographer.
That's
and
awesome.
But so the three of us launched that in that time, like I think in December, January that time, and then just kind of went for it for a while there. But
I think Doug and Kelsey had seen kind of how things can work at Weld, noticed things that could be better. That they learned a lot, I think, through that experience, and left. And I think a little bit later, we're kind of like, hey, there's some things here about a studio that could be a really interesting business model.
Yeah.
Could be a way to kind of bring creatives together. And
there was for sure a need. I think we were starting to see people were becoming members of that space just so they could use the photography studio. And so you're like,
interesting.
well, that's not great for the co-working space, but there's a demand for the studio. So we had seen a couple places at that time, like around the country, one in Portland called the Portland Studio, was starting to do these like very focused single room, beautiful aesthetic, good light.
So it's like a co-work space that has a photography studio?
It was, no, this one was just a studio, natural light studio. So and that's how it started for, I guess, our involvement in the businesses was starting just like the very single studio. And so
it seems like there's a ton of overlap between people who like need a co-work space and also need a space to shoot photography. I mean, because you get a lot of photographers in there, but also just creatives who want that collaboration.
For sure. Yeah. Like even right now we opened up the studio before we left for one of our members who's shooting there for a couple hours. And so, we'll probably talk about them at some point, but Afrotina and Timmy Coker, they're people to see and watch. But they're amazing photographers that are in the co-working space.
Cool.
So it totally works together in some good ways.
That's awesome. We have a little bit of that here too, just with like some of our friends and people who like to use our space for different things, just because we've got a few different rooms with different colors.
Yeah, it's a
and
beautiful
things.
setup for sure.
I think when around the time I first came across you guys was when I was thinking like, so I started this podcast in my dining room, and then it was like, slowly teaching yourself photo and video, and then picking up little freelance gigs here and there. And then I was like, man, all this equipment and stuff is in my dining room, and I like teaching my friends how to use it, and I don't have time to produce the whole thing. So they, they're helping me produce it. And then I was like, man, if I had it in a space, like they could use it when I wasn't there, and we could like collaborate more. And then that's when the idea kind of sparked, was like, oh, and then finding different studios. The first one I ever heard of was like Casey Neistat's 368, which is like, I guess kind of fairly new-ish compared to a lot of these spaces, but it's a really, really fascinating idea. So what like, I mean, is this all you guys do? Like the TX studios and Wax Space? Like,
we want to know how we can make this profitable for us.
It seems like scary, it just seems like a scary thing. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh man, one day would be cool. It used to be in the back of my mind, one day I'll open a coffee shop. And then slowly I was like, well, no, more like a co-work.
Now we have huge dreams. Well, and one thing that's interesting about this town is because we are not in Dallas. I mean, you guys are in a really cool part of town where, I mean, we think it's cool. We love Grapevine. It's becoming even more cool. It's becoming more walkable. And now we have the train that goes to Fort Worth. So we're getting there, but we're still in a community of mostly like, upper middle class white people with like 2.5 children who might not be creatives or need that kind of thing. But we feel like this town in general is like on the way to needing something like that. And we have big goals and dreams that
That's
we're excited
awesome.
about, but
Yeah, that's great.
down the road.
Well, and Waxbase isn't, I would say, not 100% creatives too. So there's people that are just need a place to work. And so that's we actually just launched a new portion of Waxbase, which is called the Oak Cliff 80, which is trying to get people to see it as like a place to come a couple days a week and see it as like a neighborhood work club. And so that's actually, when you talk about Grapevine, I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we can hate on WeWork and all that stuff, but I think there's like a special like magic, and I think we think that's true for Oak Cliff, where it's like you can focus on these neighborhoods or these pockets, and people get to know each other in those spots and help each other in those spots.
Yeah, the way I've explained it to people is like, you know, you have Starbucks, which is a national chain, and every Starbucks you walk into, the thing is like that cup of coffee is going to be the same in Portland and in Florida and wherever.
100%.
But what's special about the local coffee shop, like Redefined here, is like it becomes a part of the city. And what I love is like you guys having the Texas Talks, right? Or what's it called?
Yeah.
The Texas Talks and like there's some other places like Life in Deep Ellum is another space that I would consider like a homegrown, you know, I just came up with the phrase like mission driven space, meaning like there's a specific mission to the space and it does that just in that area. And maybe there are other locations, but like it really becomes a part of that town. And there's something, I don't know, do you guys agree with that that's kind of like the heart of what keeps you guys doing that? Doing the wax space and not, like as opposed to like a WeWork that's like national chain, it's everywhere, you're going to get the same experience everywhere, you can go to but what you guys offer is that local community of people.
Absolutely. I think our goal was to kind of make Wax Space the place to work in Oak Cliff. And so there's so many neighborhood folks that show up there every day and get their work done, but also get to hang out with each other. And a lot of them live within a few miles. There's people that, of course, don't live within a few miles, but there's also just a lot of cool interactions that take place that I don't think you'd really get at a more of a chain or a bigger, I guess, kind of group. But yeah, I think that's a big part of the heart behind Wax Space. It's how do we serve Oak Cliff well, and
and I think connect people in Oak Cliff, like allow them to come in. I mean, today we did it's funny, but we do something called $8 lunch each month, and this is actually our first one. But we did it at Taco y Vino, and it's like, hey, members come, spend $8, and we do like pre kind of lunch stuff, but everyone gets to meet each other and start to think about like ways to work together or see how they can help each other. But that like is special because it is like so many people are just in this like area.
And someone goes to that lunch and they meet someone and they know they're going to run into them again. Whereas in a lot of places, like you could show up and hang out at a bar for a few hours and meet someone, fine. But like, what are the chances you're ever going to run into that guy again? You know, if you have common interest in like in work things that you're doing, what's like, if someone doesn't like have an understanding of maybe what we're talking about, what's the experience that you want someone to have when they first come in to Wax Space? Like, what should they expect? I
mean, I immediately think, and there's probably a handful of things that we could share, but it's a place where you're known. You know, it's a place that you can come and you may recognize somebody who you haven't met yet, but you've seen them periodically. And there's something I think coming out of the pandemic, just special about kind of being near people again, even if you aren't, you know, sitting down and talking to them every day. It's kind of a really nice thing. And I think that's something that we want right now, certainly.
For sure. Yeah. Coming in. I mean, the space, I'm going to be more the aesthetic person.
Do it. Do you run the TX? Do you run the social media for the TX studio?
Used to, along with Kelsey, but
it's so good.
Thank you.
It's so good. That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, man, this is good.
Thanks.
This is really good.
Our social media manager, Victoria, runs it now.
So we've been in this space like a year and a half. So that means like a year and a half ago, whoever was running it back then, I knew of the TX studio. And I didn't know what we were going to do with the space. I was working at the parish full time. So I was like, okay, I'll get this space. What's the business model? Like my entrepreneurial mind is like, maybe I'll rent out one of the rooms and maybe it'll be a photography studio. Maybe it'll be just a place for us to do YouTube and podcast services. So I wasn't really sure, but the TX studio was definitely like, man, I was like, man,
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I remember being like,
and that's high praise because he doesn't give compliments.
No, I
do not.
appreciate that.
And I remember being like,
a lot. That's
yeah,
really
and I
cool.
remember it kept coming to my newsfeed. And I was like, man, this stuff is so good. Like, it was so overwhelming. I was like, man, this is really good stuff.
Good. That's crazy just to be
That's so
thinking about that.
encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. No, I mean, the studio, Victoria runs it now, but Kelsey and I kind of help with some of the aesthetics of that at the beginning. But back to your question about Wax Space, what I want people to think about, I mean, I want them to see like a beautiful space, see something that is also pointing back to Oak Cliff. So like you said, your local roaster or coffee shop, I think about that for Grapevine when you guys start that space.
Yeah.
But I mean, the coffees from Shannon down at the coffee shop at Davis Street Espresso, and tea is from Pam at Tyler Station, and then the brewery has beer there. And so it's like, it's cool. It's kind of like this front step to Oak Cliff, or like a place where you're kind of getting to meet some of the people that are like living and working there and doing some amazing things. So
when you took the leap from it sounds like before it was like freelance photography full time.
Freelance photography
and weld, and
yes,
you're working weld.
Yeah, and then actually I started doing creative direction for a nonprofit, and then that turned into a full-time job. So so we launched. I'm trying to remember if I was full-time when we launched or not, but
I think you had just gone full-time the fall before we launched.
That's kind of the history of it, but kept working for them. I still do work for them.
What's the
Creative
nonprofit?
Direction, 1517.org.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And right now, I mean, we have one person who's full-time, our director of operations, Augustina, who's running Wax and TX. And then, like Grant said, we hire a few contractors, and then like Victoria just yesterday for social media stuff.
There's probably around 8 or 9 people that are helping manage the studio on the weekends, running their social media,
content creation,
being our hospitality coordinators. So it's been kind of a incredible journey getting to that point where we just like didn't ever anticipate that or think about it, but it's been kind of fun.
And we've gone that way so that we can continue to work with 1517 on some stuff.
Right.
And
cool.
Obviously, like that's the main thing. So
was there a shift when you took on the Wax Spaces, like the owners? Was there a shift in your mind about, I mean, obviously all of us have a responsibility to our neighbors and our city, but like as a business owner in a city, there's like a different relationship you have to the city, and maybe even a responsibility in some way. Like it sounds really dumb, and I know I'm just leasing.
I don't
out this
think that's
space.
dumb.
Yeah, but like as soon as we started, like I always wanted to share a little bit in that responsibility of the city. Like when you
I want to be the mayor.
No, not like
Let's
that.
go.
I do.
Okay, fine. You want to be the mayor, but
and you're gonna run my campaign.
yeah, but like there's something.
And then when I said that I want to be the mayor, thank you. When I told Edmund, finally, I was like, Edmund, I have to tell you something. I have to get something off my chest. I want to be the mayor of Grapevine, and he was like, well, no. You can be my assistant when I'm the mayor of Grapevine. He stole it like he stole my joke at the beginning.
That's true. But was there something like, there is something about owning a business in a city that you have a different relationship to the city. You have a different level. I mean, maybe not everyone, but there is like, I feel like you guys probably have that outlook, especially with the type of space that the Wax Space is, where you're kind of like, man, like we have a certain responsibility to the city and to like lean into being a part of the city. Was that true?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it's also interesting to think about Oak Cliff versus Dallas, even though you don't want to create that like antagonistic relationship. There is a difference between, I think, what we call kind of Dallas proper, Dallas County, and then the mindset in Oak Cliff. And so for me, I had lived in Oak Cliff, but kind of became a part of the Oak Cliff community, had been working there for a little bit. And I think that was a big part of what we saw when we took over Wax Space was, hey, there's a lot of people around us that need a place to work, and also we could see how this could really benefit like the people around Oak Cliff.
Do you feel like do you feel like most people would just say, oh, it's Dallas, but then you kind of helped play a part in reclaiming some of that,
like defining it,
like the pride of like, no, we're Oak Cliff.
Oh man, I feel like Oak Cliff has had that pride for a while.
Or that maybe you participated in that life.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's and I think too there is a part of this where we're like looking at all the other co-working spaces, which is a couple in Oak Cliff. I think there was an opportunity where like, man, how do we bring people together into this like crazy weird factory? And it's just there was an excitement there for sure too.
I think the history of Oak Cliff is something that's gotten really interesting to us.
What is it? I don't know any. I mean, I don't even know.
It was its own city for a long time, and I mean, you could probably even go further back with.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of fascinating parts to it. There was a utopian socialist French society that kind of started there at one point.
La Reunion, so Reunion Tower in Dallas is named after it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Viva la Reunion.
Yeah.
There you go. And so to this day, Oak Cliff celebrates Bastille Day, and it's like a huge celebration.
That's
and it's
cool.
the only place probably in North Texas,
It's so weird.
maybe in Texas, that like people are actively celebrating Bastille Day.
Yeah.
Wow.
What else for people that don't know about Oak Cliff? Like, what else is distinct about Oak Cliff?
Man, it's
hometown to Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, that's distinct. For sure. I mean, I always tell people about Jefferson Boulevard. I think it's just the coolest street in DFW because it is there's this big old like boulevard, and it was like the downtown of Oak Cliff for a long time, and was kind of like went through a like heyday of like think of like white 1950s, very Sears, just super clean diners and everything. And I think Elvis went down there, and there's photos of that stuff. But then it very much happened like within South Dallas and Oak Cliff, like white flight happened, people moved to suburbs, and a lot of immigrant Hispanic businesses really just called it home. And so it's got this like unbelievable flavor of like different colors on the building and businesses, quinceañera shops. I think there's like 26 of them. Like it's like just not something you see in a lot of places in DFW. And so, if you guys, speaking of all the things on Jefferson, I always think of Elvis Night at at
El Ranchito.
El Ranchito. Oh my gosh.
Another funny,
they do like what?
Elvis impersonators?
Yeah.
Yes, dude.
That's so funny.
Go get
And it's
margaritas. All of y'all go. And like, it's just, you watch like 4 hours of just people doing this, and you're like
dressed to the nines.
Oh, like more than one.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's a competition. The guy.
It happens like 4 weeks in a row.
Oh my goodness.
It's a big deal.
It's out of control,
and it's such a fun thing to go see.
Man.
Oh my gosh, we got to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people that...
I feel like
Shut
I
up.
interrupted you, but I don't
No,
care.
you can go.
I feel like you guys very much feel about Oak Cliff the way that we feel about Grapevine, because we actually had a guy on a few weeks ago who is a barber here in Grapevine.
Oh, cool.
And we were talking like, okay, what's your like ultimate Grapevine day? Like you wake up in the morning, you go to coffee here, you go to lunch here, this is what you do. And I feel like you guys could totally do that. So what in terms of like your clientele, I'm not going to ask about your day in the life because I don't have any context, so I wouldn't be able to be like, oh yeah, that's a good one, because I don't really know.
Care.
No, I do. You can like tell us in the comments later. But do you find that with this like sort of melting pot of cultures that has happened in Oak Cliff over the last 50, 100 years, whatever, that are the people that call Waxbase home, is that like reflected? Is it a pretty diverse population?
For sure.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's everything from small business owners who have a small shop, a shop over in Bishop Arts, which is one of the bigger parts of Oak Cliff, to accountants and lawyers, to freelance, designers and illustrators, and a ton of videographers. So like, there's a ton of variety in that way. And then people just from all kinds of walks of life. And I don't think we could have built it that way if we had like hand selected people.
That's awesome.
But it happened.
I think it's just a reflection of the community. Yeah, like, for sure. Where, it's just Oak Cliff is that like all mixed up. And so I wasn't surprised when you start to kind of fill it up with Oak Cliff people.
My parents, my parents are from a generation that are like, wait, you would pay to go to us? Like, why would you? And I think there's a lot of confusion for people that aren't familiar with, the WeWork story or the cowork story or this type of business model. Are like, wait, why not just go work at a coffee shop? So how do you think about that unique value proposition for a cowork space? Like, how do you guys think through that?
Well, I would preface the whole co-working conversation is, I think initially the idea of co-working was not something I was attracted to. I mean, I think the model itself, generally, the way you look at it, is not like a super great business model. But I think the thing that we've started to find is there is a desire to be near people. I mean, we've seen it in this last year, like the amount of people that are doing work or can do work remotely has increased a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the unique value prop is this is your place to work when you want to work remote. And when you want to find people that are like-minded or have something kind of different that they do for work to share.
Sure. Yeah, and when I was freelancing back when I started back in Dallas, had an apartment and would wake up, go over to my desk, edit my photos, maybe watch something on Hulu, edit my photos, and then go back right over to my bed and sleep. And it was just
you can tell it was a while ago because you were watching Hulu.
I know. Hulu's a dead giveaway. But there was a part of that where it was like, oh no, we're supposed to be around each other like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there's
can't be alone.
No.
Yeah.
Like in it I like other people will spark stuff in you and you'll hear like things that people are working on, but also just everything from that lawyer that Grant's talking about. He's starting an egg guild. So what that means is it's like eggs and chickens and co-op. Like, how would you describe it? Microfinancing for coops
I mean,
I think I saw this post.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
it was like $6 for a dozen eggs or something.
Yes, dude. Yeah,
he's going to probably
take over the world.
Change the way the economy works.
Really?
He's turning it into an egg economy.
Yeah.
This is it.
No,
he's really talented, but it's something that I think was birthed out of some of the entrepreneurial spirit there, and also he has that and has wanted to do that. But I think the encouragement was definitely not a deterrent,
But it's like that stuff, and like all of a sudden we're talking about that, or like, see, I don't know, it doesn't happen when I'm like working at my apartment.
Yeah,
when I was whatever.
Yeah, there's something about like kind of combating the global economy with like more local stuff. I mean, this is something that's been a trend. Our generations are like really leaning into this, like the local, farmers market. And we had a CSA when we lived in Toledo, like community supported agriculture, where it was like, oh, like this family made these carrots, and we eat them once a year, and we don't get carrots the rest of the year, but we eat these carrots, so
Well, I think there's credence to that, and even I think for us, we've definitely leaned into that as like the future of co-working of sorts. Is like this is neighborhoods, and like it's very. I'm sure there's models to be made and everything else to go scale like crazy, but at least for us, it's like, hey, how do you focus these like spaces, or at least our space, on just like this neighborhood? And of course, anyone can come, but it's like really trying to like live up that area in that space.
One of the things we talk about a lot because of our friend Andrew, who's like really a big proponent of this idea of the third space. Yeah. So like in the past, before when churches were the center of communities, like physically a lot of like you look at most towns in New England, there's a church in the middle and people could walk to church, right? And so
that was your second space.
Right.
Like
that was, so you would have home,
first space,
work, and then the church, right? As the third space. Yeah. So a lot of our towns are no longer built around churches. We don't have that. Yeah.
Or people aren't going to church.
Or people don't go to church, right?
Going to church,
so this idea of like a third space where you come and hang out is something we're constantly talking about.
Because like third spaces could be coffee shops, bars.
And they tend to be now because people don't spend a lot of time at churches. Right. Do you guys find that I mean, I know people work at Wax Space, but does it become sort of a third space where people are there even when they're not working?
Yeah, that's a really profound way of thinking. I had never thought of it as a third space for people like that, but I love that. Yeah. I think there's something really, really good there. I think people do find themselves starting to work there and then wanting to be there more and more. And so in that way, I do think they kind of will forego the coffee shop or, some of these other places that they would have ended up to come see if, so-and-so is there today or if, it just becomes a habit.
For sure. And I do think sometimes, like, not everyone's like, work, like, go, go, go. Like, I do think people like, I'll pop up my laptop, I have some coffee, and if I see some people I'll chat. Like, like a little bit of...
I mean, honestly, with the remote working, like that's kind of what I missed out on was like the little spontaneous conversations with coworkers and stuff.
Yeah.
There's something
acquaintances.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something too about I've been thinking. I mean, for as long as I've had this idea in my head too, like the idea of a membership, like you pay to be there, and I think maybe for a lot of people it might be counterintuitive that barrier actually adds a level of commitment. Like you think of gym membership.
Yeah.
It's like now you have this gym membership. Like
we've talked about this so much.
Okay, well, like talk. Yeah, like go on that like rant about that.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, like we mentioned a little bit ago, we launched the Oak Cliff 80, which is $80 for a membership. It's a work club. Is kind of how we're positioning this new membership. And so the idea that for a couple days a week, or I mean, it's Monday through Friday, but thinking through like, people aren't going to spend every single day there all the time. Like maybe some people just want to pop in for a little bit. And so trying to like play into that like side of this where the commitment's a little bit lower. And
you were saying, there is a commitment there.
Yeah.
And it's a certain like, I should go up there. I'm paying for this, And it's something that we've gone back and forth on for probably 2 years now, thinking, why won't these people join, or why might just generally why could this be hard at $200, which was kind of our old membership price? And I think we dropped that price with the hope that it would bring more people in and that it would be more it would be easier to kind of make that commitment, if that makes sense.
It's a tough balance too.
We found that like it's since we launched it a couple months ago, we've had like 25, 30 people. We're on a wait list. Like it's
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun because I like that part of it a lot too, because it's like, oh, you're connected to us, or like this, like somehow we've crossed paths. You should come work here. And a lot of those people are starting to, and so it's just like random worlds that are kind of like coming together. And it's a blast to see.
I mean, I would hate to charge our friends to hang out with us, but there is
I would like to charge some of them.
No, but as people that have tried to run small groups and stuff, like that's one of the hardest things.
It is really hard. And by having a membership fee, you're really like getting actual buy-in
like
from
literal
buy-in from people, and it's like, hey, we're gonna have this event. You're already a member.
Yeah,
you can come.
I wonder too if there's a different like relationship with a space when you pay a membership to be somewhere.
Well, we've even seen that here at our studio. Like
Brittany treats this place like trash, and she doesn't pay at all.
Yeah. No, I leave my shoes wherever.
You need to charge her more.
No, but most of our friends have the code to get in, right? Nice. We have a door code.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
Most of our friends have the code, but because there is no like buy-in, a lot of them feel weird about coming to hang out and work here.
That's interesting.
There's only a couple, like we have a handful of them that will come pretty regularly, but people feel like they have to ask, or they have, and it's like, dude, you have the code, like you can come whenever you want. Yeah. But maybe if there was like kind of membership fee, they would feel ownership, a little bit of ownership of like, well, I can be there anytime I want.
Like gives them access to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's this sense that like you're all doing it together rather than it just being y'all's space that you can come into. It's
like you're chipping in. You're
like,
in.
oh yeah, I'm paying my part of this thing, so I'm gonna.
All of a sudden, Edmund like comes in with like Teslas, and you're just like, what?
The problem really, this is the barrier to entry is would not be a cost. It would be how loud he is.
Oh, whatever.
Because he's on the phone and or on Zoom all day for
you need
hours.
To get a phone booth.
Oh, dude,
so I thought about that. I thought about trying to build one.
I want to put like a soundproof wall.
We could make that
do it right there. That would be sweet.
That would be a sweet phone booth.
You could for sure.
And then that way Kyle couldn't
yell.
And
then you could stay in there the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so
Kyle just flipped me the bird in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah, can we get the Kyle cam while he flips the bird?
Right.
Okay, so obviously COVID has probably been a huge. I'm sure you guys are probably tired of talking about it at this point.
I'm tired of listening about it.
But how did that impact the business? But also, I think what's more interesting is what we're seeing as people are coming out, right? Like more and more companies are more comfortable with people working from home. But like you said, more and more people are going, this sucks working from home.
Yeah.
Like I would rather work somewhere else.
Yeah, like they need a break from working from home.
Yeah.
And so it's swinging back the other way, which is, it's interesting. I think there's like a shift that took place. People are going to be working from home more regularly, I think, from here on out. You see a lot of the like bigger tech companies saying like, hey, 50% of our staff is going to work remotely from now on. And so there's this like seismic shift taking place with work and how it works. But
and I was going to say it makes so much sense to have like a place just to reset. And I think we've seen that where, and I mean, I don't want to overplay Wax Space, but I know there's moms that work at home and they have like all the kids and everyone's just like, it's distracting. Like your home is not a great place to work. I mean, for some people it is, but it's nice to just get out and focus for a little bit.
Nice,
and
like
so
you said, like to go somewhere and work.
Yes,
and then be able to go somewhere to sleep.
Well, and you create a little bit of that balance, and that's like healthy.
I had the hardest time. So I'm a financial planner. It's my day job.
Oh, cool.
I had the hardest time at the beginning of COVID. And I'm the only woman on my team. So I work with all men, and they were thriving. And it's like these men, most of them are married with kids, so they've got distractions at home. But we go to work from home, and they're like, "This is amazing. I'm thriving." And I was like, "I can't get out of bed every day. I don't know what to do." Like but I was talking to some friends, and through lots of conversations and sort of reflection, I think
You're a man.
It has to do with the fact that I'm not a man.
Become a man.
No, because
You're gonna transition
men
to become a man.
I'm transitioning.
Yeah.
No, men are better at compartmentalizing. That's like historically like known fact.
So sexist.
Yeah. And because of that though, like men can just go to their desk and they're like, well, now I'm working, and then they get done and they're like, now I'm home, and they're it's like in their box. Whereas for me, like I needed the transition, the drive to and from work to get in the work mindset and then get out of it. And so I started like in the middle of COVID, actually driving home from work, leaving my home, driving around the block, and then going back home. And that was like my drive home to like decompress and realize like, okay,
have some sort of pattern.
Rhythm.
Like I mean, you can only work in your PJs and stuff for so long, and then you feel bad about it. You're like, I need to do something.
Especially if you want to do a really good job, you feel like I think for a lot of people they were just working all the time.
All the time.
They did not stop because it was just like, well, I'm here and I'm just finished dinner. I might as well just do a little more work. There's something to be said about a habit of leaving the work where it is and then coming back to it.
So speaking of like mission driven, because one of the things that we dream about is like a place where community is formed, but also a place where like people through that community will come to know Jesus. And I just looked up your charity, so I'm assuming you guys are like on board with that. Have you
with who?
With I'll introduce you to this guy named Jesus later.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you about him.
Right.
You really need to hear about him.
We are on board. Yes.
So,
we are on board. What a fantastic way that you.
Like we're all working for the same team.
We're on a pirate ship now. We're on a ship now.
Yeah, ship going somewhere.
We're on that ship.
We're on a Jesus pirate ship.
The world's thy ship and not thy home.
Okay.
So have you felt like Wax Space has been a place for like where evangelization is happening?
Wait, you can't do this because you looked up the nonprofit on the phone and then now you're referencing, but they have to explain. Like, I don't know what the nonprofit is.
I mean,
what's the nonprofit?
I was assuming everyone listening would Google it just
but
like
not
I
me.
did.
I need help.
Well, you need a lot of help that they can't give you.
Yeah, we can explain what the nonprofit
sure.
is a little bit.
For sure.
Go ahead.
1517. It's a theological nonprofit. So they do podcasts, publishing.
What?
I know. This is crazy. Resources galore. So a lot of talks.
So it's a media. So it's a nonprofit media company.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's basically a resource center for all kinds of Reformation-based resources.
Oh, this is awesome.
Everything from daily articles to daily podcasts,
conferences in Las Vegas.
So did you guys start this?
Sin
Or who
City.
started?
No, we work for it. So I work, as Sin City, as a creative director, and so everything aesthetic, visual. I'm
Awesome.
working with people on, and then. Yeah, Grant's on the development team, and you can kind of share a little bit more what you do there.
Yeah. So Doug and I have kind of joined. I mean, he mentioned it earlier. He came on as as a freelancer and then joined full time. I came on a little later full time and have been on the marketing side of things ever since I joined. But I helped with the launch of an online academy of courses.
That's cool.
And then we've worked together on a lot of the
that
marketing
we filmed in the
parts
studio.
of it. Yeah.
So,
That's so cool.
That's
everything
awesome.
from like, we actually just released a course today.
We did on vocation, which actually
Cool.
would be
Yeah.
a good segue to the question of like, hey, how does this work in a work setting?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said there about a vocation.
Yeah.
And fulfilling a vocation and what vocation is.
Sure.
I think there isn't a lot of the like open, hey, I'm going to tell you about Jesus right now kind of conversations. But like that can happen from time to time. But I think
Workspace.
But I think part of the way that I don't know, I think we view it as like we've been gifted this kind of beautiful community of people, and it's fun that we get to like be there to help them and
be friends to them.
Be friends.
Whatever that looks like.
Well,
Like walk with people on their journey.
Yeah.
feel free to go deeper into that because like I love thinking too deeply about this stuff. But like, how do you like? So we had a friend that came on, Andrew Whaley, and he has a consulting company where he helps basically nonprofits or churches start mission-driven coffee shops. And the idea is that it would be he helps people start. He had a distinct like they should be nonprofit coffee shops, which we were like, I don't know, maybe. But
we're tossing ideas around.
his whole model was like mission-driven coffee shop. People raise money to actually work there, and it's not explicit evangelization. It's not like direct. There's a picture of Jesus on the wall, and it's like, oh, you like that coffee? You know what's even better.
Eternal life.
eternal life, baby. Let me tell you about that.
Pirate ship. The
But
pirate
like,
ship.
Yeah.
but the deeper belief is that like what the people of this coffee shop believe about human flourishing contributes to human flourishing regardless of the ideological like worldview, and that maybe one day that puts someone on a path closer to God.
And just this idea of being known and loved in a space like that. And Andrew, had talked about how if your coffee shop is for profit, then baristas need to be turning out drinks 6 or 8 or 10 at a time, right? And if the objective is relationship rather than making a profit on coffee, then you can have an actual conversation with your barista, and they can know your name, and they can, make you feel loved when you're there, and accompany you on your journey, whatever that looks like.
It's such a fine balance, but I get the sense that you guys also like are not like when you start holding that mission, like, oh, I need to evangelize someone too tightly.
I think you're picking up on that sense, at least for me.
Yeah.
So I think there was a beautiful kind of explanation of this that I've always appreciated, which was there was a guy who was a shoemaker basically and came to this other guy and said, hey, I'm a shoemaker. How do I like tell people about Jesus, or like how do I serve people well? And he was like, you don't need to do it by like putting little crosses on your shoes. Just like make a good shoe,
make an amazing shoe,
sell it at a fair price, and know that that's glorifying God. And I think that's like a really powerful way of reframing the conversation there.
Because, and we do have like a foot in both these worlds, the profit and nonprofit. So it kind of, I don't know, I feel like we can speak a little bit to that. But I relate to the vocation side of that as well, where it's like, okay, how do we make the best co-working space for someone to be in? Yeah. And then these relationships will occur. I think of also Shannon from Oak Cliff Coffee Roasters. He's he's someone who like treats people incredibly well, hospitality wise. Like kind of some of the things you were saying, like make you feel loved, make you feel known in that area. Yeah. But he is laser focused on just amazing coffee and also trying to serve. He's done this in a really interesting way where he's like trying to serve the neighborhood first and foremost. So starting a bread company from there, sourdough bread, and like a
cool.
chocolate company as well. Yeah. And so, but I look to him, who I believe he's a believer, I think, and like he's
on the ship.
He's on the ship.
He's on the ship.
He is on the ship. But I'm like, here's a dude who's like just a leader in Oak Cliff, and he's like focused on this craft and this vocation, and he's doing it well. And I know people are being like loved and taken care of in that space. And so,
do you guys feel like when I was working at the church, or like because I had an outlet where I was more direct with believers, it was easier in other areas to be like, I'm just here with someone.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that helps? Like you're in this nonprofit where people are teaching explicitly like theology.
For sure.
Does that kind of help you balance the two of like, no, when I'm here, like we're just loving on people. We're not worried about that because I have this other space where I'm helping do that more explicitly.
I think that's a really good observation. And I think it does. I really do. I mean, we get the opportunity to kind of be with the people at 1517 and experience that commonality together. You know, it's something that we can enjoy together, kind of be with each other on Zoom for the most part. But then we step out of our office and it's back to, you know,
kind of around us, you know,
the people around us, exactly, who maybe are believers or maybe aren't, but there is something about having both of those things that's really, really good.
Yeah. There's you know, the phrase the creator economy, and then I've also heard people say that like with each successive generation they have multiple streams of income. Like the number of people that have multiple streams of income is like rising, right? And like in some ways I sense this from you guys. I don't know if this is true, but I sense this like because there's multiple ways that you're making a living, there's no one that you're the most stressed about. Maybe that could be wrong. Maybe you guys are like, freaking, we need to.
All stressed all the time.
Yeah. I'm sure there is some of that.
No.
But is that true? Like, do you feel like you have the TX studio? Like, do you guys just have like 70 businesses, or is it just like, is it this nonprofit, the TX studio, the wax space? Like, is that? Are you guys? Have you guys always been this way? Like,
I love these questions.
Yeah,
there's 20 questions. I'm getting excited.
No, you're right. I can speak for myself here. I've always been this way in the sense that it's been a fatal flaw of mine where I say yes to almost everything.
Me too.
And so it leads to a lot of fun, leads to a lot of opportunity, leads to a lot of stress, and you know that's just kind of what it's been.
What's the weirdest thing that you've said yes to?
Oh man,
my gosh.
Probably
this podcast.
Yeah, definitely not.
Are you kidding me? No, not the weirdest.
Like other business? Have you started other businesses or like been involved in other stuff that?
Yeah, I mean, we've both, I think, been in kind of entrepreneurial mindsets
Edmund
for a long
wants
time.
To start a bunch of businesses that fail on purpose.
Yeah,
we kick around like
he loves getting
new
punched
business
in the face.
ideas a lot,
Constantly.
and so it is a bit of it's hilarious actually because there's one right now that I think we're like. Is this a distraction, or should we do this? Is this great, or is this bad?
Mission drift.
Yeah, exactly. So there is that that element for sure. You're always kind of fighting.
Sparkling water, by the way.
Now's a good time.
I love
now's a great time. You used to say like, or there's that whole thing about 90% of businesses go out of business within the first 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say that when they're like trying to give me crap about my businesses and stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, no. The thing is that a real entrepreneur, the entrepreneur never goes out of business.
Yeah,
like they never see it as the business.
He's
when
like, this brand might go out of business, but Edmund
I'm
Mitchell,
never going out of business. Like I don't see it as like I started this thing and it went out of business.
Whereas
I just went to another project.
Whereas I like tie my identity to what I do, and like so I'm like, if this fails, like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? You know, I'm not as quick to like turn around and like get up and pick up the pieces. That's cool.
Is it stressful though, like the wax space, making that a sustainable business? Like
it would be if we didn't have Augustina. I would think. When we hired her, she took it even to where it where we took it, and then took it even further. I feel like because she's been integral as far as the
what's her
stress part of
position?
that. Director of operations.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, she's helping run both.
Add that to my title.
I need a director of operations,
dude.
We've probably made a lot of bad decisions since we started doing this stuff, but I think that was like probably our absolute best decision. And she came on at a time when we were trying to build wax space from where it had been, like Doug was just saying. And she came on and like actually got it all done based on what we had envisioned.
Build out is no joke.
And
you guys did a build out?
Yeah, it was just like it was bootstrap for sure, but it was like
we hired hired Sarah Garza. She was a interior designer, and so that was actually one of the first big projects we did. Was like immediately.
It's beautiful. The space.
They're not in our league, Edmund. I said y'all are not in our league.
Oh no,
like we can't afford an interior designer.
Oh no.
Oh, we couldn't either. Like we've been paying that debt off. I mean, that's been the fun part of this. A little bit though.
TX
is like
Studio. We took some of that from the TX Studio to get Like, so
kind of seeded the investment a little bit for sure.
Honestly,
That's what I've said though about every person we've hired. When people are like, "How are you hiring people?" I'm always like, "We can't afford."
Yeah.
I don't know how we're affording it.
Yeah.
So like, man, I lost my train of thought.
I have a question. So one of the things that we talk about, because we've got our agency, Bummer and Lazarus, where we're doing client projects, social media management, etc.
Because I quit my church job in October.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You went full freelance.
He's full-time.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
What you
amazing,
see
man. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So I worked for the church for 10 years.
Okay.
Holy cow.
And then
Yeah.
got frustrated in the middle of COVID and just like decided that was a great time to just quit.
Start something new.
And so when I worked at the church, I think a year before I quit, I like started the space and we had no intention of using it as a full-time space. It was just like, this is great. Like we could do church stuff here.
Right.
We could do freelance stuff on the side, supplement our income. And then when I quit, I had no plan. So I was like, all right, something with this building. We got to do
do
something.
it.
And then it turned into
He
like,
bought a bunch of websites.
yeah.
Always the first step.
He owns 45 URLs.
So sorry, you were saying we client services.
Yeah, so that's where we spend most of our time because that's what pays our bills.
Yeah.
But we have also talked about this idea of 10%, almost like a tithe towards passion projects. So right now our 10% mostly is dedicated to things like the show.
Right.
Because it's really fun for us. We like getting to meet people and put out the content that we do.
And you're killing it
But
too.
thank you.
Yeah.
But everyone on our team, and we've talked to our team members about this. Everyone has like their 10% that what they want to do, how they want to spend their time, and this kind of goes to vocation, right? Like thinking about your job. Yes, you've got to make it pay the bills, but also like you want to be fulfilled and have that kind of thing. So, what of all the things that you guys do?
Oh, this is a great question.
What is your 10%? Like, what are your passion projects? What are the things that you're like? Like, we know that some of the stuff you do, you just do to pay the bills. But other stuff surely is like, you're like, this is really it for me.
That's tough. I feel like they're going to say all of them.
I know. I feel.
Well, so for me, at least, I could say something outside of what we've talked about so far. Because, I mean, I think Waxspace and TX certainly are part of that. And, of course, 1517 is our full-time gig. So there's that. I think going to school, like taking some classes has been something that's been my 10%.
He's doing a master's at
University of Dallas. So
Sweet.
nice.
Yeah. So like trying to read through the great books, basically.
That's awesome. They
nice.
have a great books program.
I am just blown away by their their professors
My
and the
roommate's
whole
a
experience.
PhD student at
No way.
UD.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
In the
Shout out to her
Lit.
name.
Susan Matassa.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
She's
really
teaching 7 Arts next year. So which is like a freshman literature class.
cool. Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So that's I would say for me at least right now that's kind of the 10% of like this like makes me tick and I just want to keep doing it and
That's awesome.
My answer is gardening.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. So, and it's kind of gotten out of control. So, there's a few of us in the neighborhood, Elmwood, and started just kind of like all of us were doing raised beds during COVID in back of our houses and stuff, and ended up becoming bigger and bigger, and we ended up starting like a little neighborhood farm.
Wait,
yes.
do I know this? Is there a website for this?
Yes, there is.
I think I
Elmwood
know
Farms.
this too.
Yes,
I think I
yes.
found this.
This is
Yeah,
Doug.
That is awesome.
I know.
Dude, it was, I mean, and a big part of it is Andrew Cagle, who's the president, and he's a member at Waxspace. So
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
it just like, I
He's
don't
the
know, it keeps-
president of that
yeah.
of the
this
farm.
Oh,
yeah, he
man.
has just done so much. But, and then
What's it called? Elmwood Farm.
Elmwood Farms.
Okay, that's right.
.co, I think. .co.
Yeah, I remember finding
but-
this too when I was
yeah,
looking for
dude,
more like
so-
mission-driven, just like
I mean,
interesting models.
That's so we kind of, there's a few others at Waxspace and like the Egg Guild guy.
Yeah.
Another guy who's a soil science major from A&M that I knew, all in the neighborhood. So we like got this little piece of land that we got rent free for a couple of years, and we're like, let's start.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Start trying to make it beautiful and grow crops and put some chickens out there.
That's
and,
awesome.
Yeah, activate the
Edmund
space.
has chickens
So-
in his backyard.
Yeah, at least you
awesome.
guys have the raised beds in the backyard. My wife is like,
nice.
let's put them in the front yard.
They're
Nice.
I had to talk her out of turning our entire front yard into a corn patch, like cornfield.
yeah. That's
I was like,
awesome.
no, just like some
Sounds
grass.
like a smart woman.
Yeah, and then we have the chickens in the back too. That's really
Dude,
cool
that's
though.
awesome.
Yeah.
I have a raised bed.
So wait, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about you said 10% has gone mostly towards this? Has there been anything else that has been on your radar? You're like, oh man, I would really love to go do this.
I mean, it really would
Raised
be.
beds.
It's awesome.
Really,
Nice.
it would be. Oh.
I have tomatoes.
I mean, really, honestly, like,
Yeah.
so when I quit my job, it's been insane. Like, as you guys probably know, like going full time and trying to replicate my salary.
Yeah.
I can only imagine,
Dude.
especially in October of last year.
Yes.
Like, just the
Yeah.
timing of everything.
And he
And-
has 6 mouths to feed at home.
And the other thing was like my whole life I'd wanted. This is getting too deep, maybe, but like
No, go
this
for
is
it.
great.
Do it.
my whole life I've wanted God to like send me to one city, like send me somewhere where I can dig in over the long term.
He was a military brat.
Yeah,
so
I
he's
got father
some,
issues.
Got some wounds.
No. So like my wife and I just felt like missionaries, like send us somewhere where like we can have an impact on that place. And I knew early on from people I looked up to that it couldn't just be like a fly in, or at least for me, I was not like a fly in, do a tent revival and fly out. It was like, it needs to be like long term, like in the neighborhood and try to shift culture, you know?
Yeah.
And then it becomes more than a personality. It's like it was a culture shift.
Yeah.
And so I still feel, this sounds dumb maybe to some people listening, but like called to Grapevine. Like I feel rooted in Grapevine. And when I felt like I needed to quit, I just couldn't, I couldn't decide to move anywhere else.
Yeah.
Now Grapevine is expensive as shit to live in.
Yeah.
So like, it was just like, all right, God, like, let's try to make it work.
Yeah.
So so back to your question, like it's been 24-hour days, 7 days a week, just trying to make that happen.
Man.
Now, the big thing that I haven't been able to get off my mind, and Brittany has kind of come along for this, is like the idea of a space, whatever that
Yes.
means.
Cool.
If it's a coffee shop or like
Yeah.
a creative studio it's changed a lot
Yeah.
over the years, but I think that
We
ultimately,
want it to be everything. We want it to be coffee
Yeah.
shop and workspace.
Yeah.
and
we're gonna start a church.
collaborative and yeah.
But I think like that shift, like I've realized that a lot of the parts of the way I'm made is like entrepreneurial business, but also city, and then like leaning, and then there's something so creative about owning a space and engineering the aesthetics of it and like what that experience is like. That's so fun. And it's very similar to inviting someone into your home.
Yeah.
But it's a little different because it's like, yeah, it's just such an interesting thing,
Yeah.
like owning a business where people. So, anyways, that's kind of like
Yeah.
long term.
I relate to a lot of that too. Like it's almost like a living room. We call it like a neighborhood living room almost
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's like somewhere people can come in and feel comfortable. I think what you're talking about too is like feeling called to Grapevine. I somewhat relate to that for Oak Cliff, where it's just like Elmwood is this not small, but it's a decent sized neighborhood in Oak Cliff. And it's, we've got friends all over now that have like moved their house, like moved and like bought houses there.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
starting
what's
to be-
happened to us here
well,
too.
and it's awesome because it gets sweeter and sweeter. And I
Yes.
think Wax Space is going to get sweeter and sweeter over time because, and I do think times plays into that, like, authority in that area.
Yeah.
Or I think of Shannon, like there's a million different coffee shops that pop up in Oak Cliff, but I'm like, oh, that dude, he's gonna be here. And he's also like he's been here for a
Yeah.
while and
Yeah.
he's committed to the area. And it's just like there's I don't want to say there's a different level or something. There's something beautiful about like really like saying, hey, I love this spot. I'm going to stay in the spot and
Yeah.
I'm going to invite people to the spot. Like
yeah, that's happened. A lot of our
Yeah.
friends. I mean, when we first all started hanging out, people were scattered. I mean, you didn't even live in Grapevine
I
at
lived
the
in
time.
North Richland Hills. at
Yeah,
the time,
and
yeah.
people were in different, like the Gutierrez were in Keller.
Yeah.
People were in different towns. And over time, slowly, everyone has moved.
Oh man, that's so
And-
It's a
cool.
little bit of a dream because like
Yeah, that
my
is.
house is a
Yes.
mile that way,
Yeah.
and then the church that I worked at was a mile that way. So the studio is right in the middle,
Yeah.
and then Main Street's right there.
Like he
Yeah.
walks everywhere. I mean, he
Yeah.
said he has a moped, but it's in the shop half the time. He literally walks everywhere.
Yeah.
I live less than a mile from the
That's
studio.
awesome.
Like all of our friends are really close, and it
There's something right about
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
there's something again to go back to like commitment. Like there's something about committing to a place, and like you kind of earn that right to not a right, but like you earn the impact on the city
Yeah.
by that commitment over time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not just a fly by in the night type thing,
Right.
Yeah.
or you kind of come to see all of the sides of that area.
Yeah.
And get really rooted. I think that's a beautiful way of living.
My wife and I,
a good thing.
My wife and I, we live on this cul-de-sac, and every time we think about moving, we're like, man, but we'd leave all our neighbors.
Yeah.
And we're on this cul-de-sac. We're like, our kids go over other kids' houses. Like, we're at each other's birthday parties.
It's like old school, when we were kids.
Yeah. And like, it's like the community just like keeps you there.
Yeah.
Well, and I tell people, a lot of the guys at 1517 work in California, and I tell them sometimes I walk to work in Dallas. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not supposed to happen in a 3 million person or whatever population it is. But I think there's something. Yeah, I love that. I love how close you are to these things.
So what advice? So I guess just for people listening who. The few people listening to this.
The one person listening to this.
No, the few people that are listening.
All of our moms.
Yes, exactly. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Doreen.
Karen.
My mom doesn't listen.
So I was waiting for you to say your mom's name, and then I remembered.
Say Mom.
Both Karen.
I have no mom.
You should have said Karen, and then Edmund would be like, "Y'all's moms have the same name."
Yeah, what the?
For people that are the few people that are listening that also have this desire to start a co-work space or something like that.
Or to our friends who we are going to need your help when we eventually get there.
Yes.
What is your advice to someone thinking about that, or was your advice to us if we're thinking about that someday in the future? I mean, it's not anytime soon for us, but like what is, if you could start all over again and you didn't have the opportunity to acquire one, or maybe that's your advice, acquire one.
Yeah.
But how would you think through that? Like, they seem the models are all so different in terms of, I mean, what would you call this? Like hyper local co-work space, or like.
It is a little bit of a new version of the co-working model, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lower price for the monthly membership. It's only gonna ever be focused on Oak Cliff, basically. I mean, that's the way we view it. So I don't know what you would call it. In terms of advice, I mean, I don't feel like I'm really like a great person to give advice.
Give some advice, Grant. Give some.
Well, maybe you made a lot of mistakes.
I think there's a ton of mistakes for sure. I would say it seems like, particularly you two, but like it seems like you guys are doing all of the things that I think are the right things. And so in terms of like finding the right space or finding the right kind of building owner to work with on a space, I think we stumbled into a really pretty good relationship with the property owner at Tyler Station. And I think that also, though, was you coming like and approaching him and then us starting to build that relationship. I would also just say, like, go for it a little bit. I know it's probably like easier said than done for sure, but having kind of what you think is going to be your model in place and trying to realize that like that's not going to be it at the end of the day. That's going to be trashed, but it'll be somewhere along those lines maybe is helpful.
Yeah. Throw a really good launch party.
Yeah.
I think that's what we did in Nashville. But there was a lot of work done on the beginning of launching that, which was going and starting some of these and Weld is quite a bit, I don't want to say it's totally different than Wax Space, but it's a little more, it was very community focused and even very creative focused.
Okay.
And so I know the community manager up there, and the founder, they both worked really hard to like invite people to coffee shops and like go work around each other, get to know them beforehand, and then do a big launch party. And yeah, it was a little different for us taking on Wax Space when it was kind of offered. But I think, gathering that community in some way now is probably a good first step. I mean, I'd say come have some beers with us at the beer garden.
Heck
and
yes.
we'll share what we know.
However we could ever help you guys, we would be so down.
Honestly,
I would also say, ruthlessly steal ideas.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's like you don't want to copyright infringe, but like there are so many
models and
things that are working out there.
Yeah.
And they're like in, wherever.
Yeah.
So you could kind of see that as inspiration. And
how often do you guys think of new services or models or additions? Like, how often are you guys like, maybe we should turn half of the space into a podcast studio? Maybe we should do like how? Yeah, are you guys just?
Daily,
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's normal.
That's
yeah.
The truth is like,
thank goodness there's someone else like me in the world.
I know.
there's a million factors
Yeah.
every single day that are
Okay.
changing, and so even the vision, like I would say we're pretty like ruthlessly committed to our vision, but maybe not so like concerned about the details on how we get there.
Gotcha.
And so knowing that like, oh, maybe we need to make dedicated desks here or turn these into offices or scrap both of those ideas and turn it into a reading room. Like those kind of things are just always things that are happening in the background.
Yeah.
But you know where you're going. You know what the end.
Yeah.
You're starting with the end in mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're in that space, you know, all the time, Monday through Friday, sometimes weekends, but like we see every little opportunity there is in certain spots. So, hey, we could put a periodical newsstand over here, or we can add 2 more taps into the counter. It's literally like, hey, yeah, we want cold brew coffee and maybe another beer. I don't know. Phone booth, we just got.
Yeah, we
that,
gotta have alcohol at ours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's been the coolest part about part of the reason I couldn't get the idea out of my mind was like how flexible and how it could change, or how it could just be a building where now Juke comes with his barbershop chair and they're like doing it, you know, like stuff like that.
Seriously, we got to get Juke in there for sure. Cutting hair.
Well, but that's like such a, like, you don't get that. I don't see other co-working spaces doing that to that extent where they care so much about that area. Yeah. Like once you start having, and this might be too critical of like bigger regional co-working spaces, but like once you start having 20 spaces, like it's a system, you know, like, and it's, you're telling me.
Kyle's into it.
No, but like you don't, that local flavor of like having the Oak Cliff, like our brewer down the hallway, bringing beer down and a barber
and here in Grapevine,
space.
we're known for our wineries. So like getting some local
wineries.
Guys, we're going to have a wine night up here.
Yeah.
Like that's,
seriously.
in the co-working space. Let's go.
Seriously.
That's good.
Is there anything like for people to support you from a distance? Is there any ways that people could support the wax space?
Follow us. That's a good one. Okay. Share the talks when we post them. That kind of stuff. We love any engagement in that.
Pitch the talks. Because I think this is such a cool idea too.
Thanks, man.
But when's the last one? Have you had to stop them?
We've had to stop them, but we're gonna ramp them back up.
Good.
Yeah, they're coming soon. Texas Talks. So we focus this once a month on kind of creativity and craft, and work with people who are in Oak Cliff that are just inspiring to us, and try to get them up in front of members.
That is so cool.
Share some of their stories.
Local business owners and
different artists, business owners. We had a woman who started Joy Macaroons, like a macaroon shop on Davis Street, and so she talked about her brand and like how to craft like a good brand, but then also you're hearing this person talk about how she, like as a mother with kids, like started this amazing bakery and was just trying to figure it out and did it, and so and now has like a whole kitchen on Jefferson Boulevard.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's kind of
I would say coming to those events too is starting to just be a part of it in some form or fashion. Yeah. We would love that. I mean, I think that's for sure something we're eager to get back to.
Okay, here's a question that I've been scared to ask for a long time, or that I've been thinking.
Go.
Let's go.
Okay, and I guess this happens at gyms too. What about someone who's just not cool for the space?
Great question.
Like someone buys the membership. Like, is there ever a situation like someone's signing up for the membership and you're like, man, this guy smells and he's mean and you know what I mean? Like
such a perfect question.
How do you? Because like whether you're caring too much explicitly about community or you're just like that would be nice. Like at some point there might be. Regardless of what co-work space you have.
And what do you do if it's your business?
That's the golden question.
I can tell you a lot about that. So that's a great question. It's something we've encountered for sure, and it's something we've had to talk about a lot.
Yeah,
and it's a dance. I mean, you're dealing with people, so like there's always going to be an element of something that you didn't see that maybe somebody has a certain personality type and you didn't pick up on it, but now it's a thing and it's something that everybody kind of has to understand. I think that's part of being in a community. Yeah. And I don't, there is a level of like, I want to protect the people here. And so I'm going to do that. But there's also this element of like, I'm going to probably learn something from those people that are a little bit different and or maybe not the people I'd be like, I want you on my team. Yeah. So there's that.
Everyone signs a membership agreement.
Oh, that's smart.
Have you had to change that? Like, how often do you have to change that?
We just updated some of that
stuff. Also, no smacking your gum.
Yeah. No, we're pretty
regularly.
Yeah.
People are pretty chill though.
Yeah, yeah, and that's in the DNA of Oak Cliff too.
Well, that's another thing I'm afraid of is like someone coming to you as the owner and saying, "Hey, I have a problem with Karen. Yeah. She's a real piece of work." Yeah. And like, can you go tell Karen to stop, blah, blah, you know, like
put you in the middle of
that has been what I've been nervous about.
Yeah. That happened in the church a lot.
Yeah. People are always complaining to me about Brittany.
I mean, there's a lot to complain about.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't run into that too much, I feel like, which is nice. But I mean, there's some altercations and things like that we have to figure out. But again, there's always there's always a, like I said, there's a membership agreement too.
Yeah.
So.
Do you guys think you ever would open a second space, or do you think one is like that's enough?
That's a good question too. I think one feels like a lot right now.
Yeah.
But then again, we don't like.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would have ever thought we would have took on Wax Space, and we did. And so there's some of that kind of uncertainty of what might happen in the future that I'm okay with. You know.
Yeah.
I think we're really focused on like how do we make sure that this space is working really well for the people here, bringing in more people that could benefit from it, and make sure that we're all getting to spend a lot of time together, that kind of thing.
And I feel like we still feel like we're building it. Like it's even those we've kind of said like, okay, we're starting to do some of these events. We've brought on these new hospitality coordinators to help us build the business, and it's now like kind of turning to Texas Talks and this programming and even like, but that's like another mindset of like, okay, how do we build this part of this thing? So I don't know if we're there yet, but definitely thinking through like how to keep pushing it forward more and more in Oak Cliff.
Another question I had is like, speaking the TX studios or Texas studio?
TX studio.
Okay. TX studio. Yeah. In the kind of creator economy, more and more small businesses or businesses are having to be media companies, and the TX studio is advertised as like a photography studio, but there's also video, like you also say like, hey, come shoot videos and stuff. I'm sure maybe you see like this need for more spaces that are like podcasting and video and photography and like come do your media company stuff for your small business here.
For sure.
How are you thinking about that in terms of like, do people mostly just see it as a photography studio, or do you see there being a shift in more and more people making these creator spaces? We just had, and to give you time to think about it too, we just had, and I've talked about this a ton, but I'm a huge fan of Sarah Dici. Do you know her on YouTube?
No, I don't.
She's a YouTuber. She's from Grapevine.
Oh, cool.
Like her and Post Malone.
Opened a studio down the road.
She just opened
I know what you're
a photography studio right down the freaking road.
Blanco studio.
And my wife
we did see that.
My wife has no idea. I'm like, imagine like your whole life you think one day I want to open a Chinese restaurant, and you love like P.F. Chang. Oh my gosh, Kyle.
That's a good drop.
And then that and then that happens.
Yeah.
Like imagine like you live in a small town, your whole life you're like, one day I'll open a Chinese restaurant. Then you finally quit your job, open this little tiny Chinese restaurant in a city where like there's no other Chinese restaurant. And then P.F. Chang like moves into town, moves back home to his hometown, and opens like his first ever P.F. Chang taco truck or something, you know? Like that's how it feels. I'm like, oh, I'm such a huge fan of Sarah.
Yeah.
Right down the street though.
We can walk there.
Oh, really?
It's like right down. It used to be a cowboy church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wait, that's cool.
But
now it's
advertised
studio.
Yeah, and it's advertised as a photography studio. But when I was first thinking about this space, I was thinking, well, maybe there is a space for like podcast, video, YouTube, like creator maker space. I don't know.
Oh no, that's. I mean, to answer the question, it is very much photography, some video. I mean, people use it for both, but that's where it's seen. I do think, like, even with Wax Space, we had talked about the podcast studio, and we did that for a while, but ended up selling it as an office. I know.
Wait, you sold an office in the Wax Space?
There was a space we had our eyes on for a podcast studio.
Gotcha.
And we're like super glad that we did sell it. I think
the
because the people that moved into it are
they're awesome,
first class. Like we're so thankful that they're there. But it was like a little bit of a dagger to both of our hearts. We're like,
oh, this thing.
There was the podcast. But we'll be back. It's one of those evolution things. That in due time we'll have something like that. I hope.
Try to recreate something like this.
But do you think that's where like those like photography studios will start going? Is like
that's a good question.
More and more people need branded content and product photography and videos and podcasts.
We have seen that just continue to increase, which has been great because it's like the demand hasn't gone away.
No, it's an explosion.
And you've even more so, we've seen like, I don't know, there was one other studio kind of when we started, and now there's like, I don't know, 10, 12.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, it's
a bunch of
there's
natural
a ton of competition
studios.
for it.
Yeah.
I think the accessibility is the thing that, particularly for a photography, videography studio, you know, that was a harder thing to get into 2, 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And now you can rent a studio like ours for, you know, $100 for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I do think more and more of that kind of thing will happen.
Yeah.
What's interesting about photography and videography is a lot of that immediately translates into a product that is sold for a price.
Yeah.
I think that's true for YouTube videos. And I think that's true for podcasting, but it's a slightly different monetization of it. So I wonder if that will be a factor in that. But man, I think for sure that more of those kind of creator spaces is going to be the future of things.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you have to come down to Tyler Station and Wax Space.
We really have to go.
We gotta come.
Yeah, it'd be so fun.
Yeah, be good to show you around.
We've talked for a long time, probably.
Yeah.
I haven't even kept track of time. Did we have any questions for them on our Instagram? We put out a thing on Instagram, like we always ask, like, "Hey, drop some questions." I don't know. Do you want to check?
No, go ahead.
Where else, so people can support the Wax Space?
That's it. Yeah, at the Wax Space.
Or what's the website? Waxspace.com.
Thewaxspace.com, and then the TX Studio.
The TX Studio, and then also follow them on Instagram. Just freaking, that's how I found the TX Studio.
Let's go. That's
started
awesome.
crying seeing that. I was like, this is so beautiful.
Dude, too kind.
And now you guys are here in person. He can't even believe it.
This is so fun.
Is there anything else you want to tell? Oh, 1517. Go check out that.
Yep.
Is there anything else people should check out or shout out?
Come out to one of those Texas talks. I think when we start ramping those up, it'd be awesome.
So it's not just for members?
No, it's open to the public.
Cool.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the beer garden?
Beer garden. That is,
yes.
Yeah, that's Oak Cliff
Brewing Co. is at the other end of the building.
Okay.
And they've put together this amazing beer garden, and it's where we should end our day when you come out there.
Okay.
It'll be perfect.
Yeah. We'll do that.
That's sweet.
Be good.
You guys are welcome back anytime if you ever need to promote something. Like if you need a place to come work.
If you need
awesome. Yeah.
If you want to come use the line,
might take you up on it.
Swing by Grapevine.
If you need like a day away from the office and you just want to work somewhere for free for some Wi-Fi,
that.
yeah.
Well, ditto from our side for sure.
Yeah.
And thank you so much
We'll take you
for
down Main Street and Grapevine. We'll show you our
we're going to take you guys up on that.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I'm interested in learning more about Grapevine because I feel like you guys love this place, and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
It's the Christmas capital of Texas, but it's self-proclaimed. I don't know if it actually is, but it says.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
We say it's the
Yeah.
Christmas capital of Texas.
It is then, for sure.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks guys so much. I don't even know how to end. This was a great episode.
It was a great episode.
Good.
Very, very informative.
DrinkStudioCoffee.com.
That is true. Yeah, we need to like broker a deal with your, whoever does your brewing.
Oh no, you're getting played out. That's the music. All right, that's all we have for tonight, guys. Thank you so much. The
Support
Wax
the
Space.
Patreon.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
You're gonna die.
That was great.
Guys, thank you so much.
That was so fun.
You guys